Capricorn, June marks a season of transformation. 3 surprising events await. Take a breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let the tension that's been sitting quietly in your chest begin to ease. Something ancient is approaching, and it carries the scent of change. June is not just another turn of the calendar for you. It is an energetic gate, a cosmic realignment, a month whispered into your destiny long before you arrived here. And now, it stirs, quietly, deeply, asking not for control, but for surrender. You may have already begun to sense it, the pressure building under the surface, the feeling that something invisible is moving pieces around in your life, the dreams that linger longer than usual, the intuition that's becoming harder to ignore. These are not coincidences. They are sacred signals. The universe is preparing you for something unexpected, something meaningful, something undeniably yours. 3 events, synchronistic, catalytic, and entirely fated, are heading your way in June. Not to shake your foundation, but to liberate it. Each one will touch a different part of your life, your identity, your relationships, your sense of purpose. And when the month ends, you will not be who you were before it began. This is your moment, Capricorn. If something in you already knows this, if your soul is leaning forward as you read, then stay with me. This isn't a forecast. It's a remembering, a returning. Like, share, or subscribe if you feel called, not for me, but for the part of you that's ready to awaken. Because June is not just change, it's metamorphosis. And you, dear Capricorn, are finally ready to rise. Gate 1, the awakening of self, reconnection with your inner essence. Capricorn, of all the signs, you are often the most composed. The mountain goat who climbs quietly, patiently, without the need for applause. You are the keeper of structure, the one who knows how to build legacy from stone and willpower. But what happens when the blueprint you've been following no longer feels like it belongs to you? What happens when the identity you've constructed begins to feel too small? This is the first gate of June, a return to your inner essence. It may begin quietly, like a thought you can't shake, or a memory from childhood resurfacing without cause. Perhaps you've recently looked around your life and thought, whose dream am I actually living? Maybe it's subtle. You still show up. You still function. But something inside you is beginning to ache for authenticity. That ache is sacred. The universe is not punishing you when it dismantles a version of your identity. It is liberating you from a story you've outgrown. This month, you may notice unusual clarity about who you used to be and who you're becoming. It might come through dreams, moments of déjà vu, or sudden waves of nostalgia that bring both grief and insight. Let me tell you about Daniel, a Capricorn I worked with last June. A high-performing architect in his early 40s, Daniel had built a successful firm, had 2 kids, and a reputation as a rock, both professionally and in his family. But beneath the surface, he was exhausted. His days were filled with projects he no longer felt connected to. At night, he began dreaming of painting, something he hadn't done since college. He brushed it off as stress until it kept recurring. One dream stood out. He was in the mountains, surrounded by ancient stones, and his hands were covered in color. He wasn't building with them. He was painting them. Each stone had a story, and he could feel that story with his hands. That dream changed everything. He began to paint again, quietly, without telling anyone. At first it felt childish. Then it felt like coming home. 6 months later, he integrated his art into his architectural designs. His firm didn't collapse, it evolved. And so did he. That's the power of Gate 1. It invites you to remember the self you buried beneath responsibility. This month, Capricorn, you may begin to feel fragments of your old dreams returning. Not to distract you, but to restore you. What once felt unrealistic may now feel urgent. What once seemed childish may now hold the key to your joy. You might find yourself drawn to music again, or walking routes from your teenage years. A childhood book could fall into your lap. Old journals may call to be read. And through these encounters, a voice will rise, not loud, but steady. You have always known who you are. This gate is not about abandoning your commitments. It's about reclaiming your compass. You can still lead, still build, still rise, but from a place that feels aligned with your soul, not just your survival. You may ask, how do I reconnect with my inner self when I don't even know what I want anymore? The answer isn't in force. It's in listening. Create space in June for the quiet. Mornings before the phone. Evenings under the sky. 5 minutes with your hand on your heart asking, what am I pretending not to feel? You don't need to solve anything. Just notice. Name what arises. Your body remembers. Your heart remembers. You just need to let it speak. And yes, this will be emotional. Grief may arise, not because you did anything wrong, but because you abandoned parts of yourself to survive. That is not shameful. It is deeply human. And it is reversible. Gate 1 offers you a mirror and a map. It shows you what parts of your identity were crafted to protect you, and what parts were left behind in the process. This month, don't be surprised if your external world feels less stable. Things you thought you needed may dissolve. Roles you played without thinking may suddenly feel uncomfortable. People may say, you've changed. Let them. You are not here to play a version of yourself that no longer fits. You are here to become truer. As a Capricorn, this may feel like a threat to your image. You value consistency, trust, reputation. But the universe is whispering now. What if your next level of success is tied not to control, but to authenticity? Let me offer you a question to carry this month. If I could no longer impress anyone, what kind of life would I build? That question may unravel you, but in the unraveling, you'll find your way back home. The inner essence you're being called to remember is not lost. It's been waiting, patiently, lovingly. It knew you would return. And when you do, when you allow even one small decision to be guided by your truth rather than your duty, everything begins to shift. You speak differently. You walk differently. The world begins to respond to the real you, not the version you performed. That's when the first unexpected event of June unfolds. You remember who you are without the masks. Capricorn, are you ready? This is not the end of your ambition. It is the resurrection of your alignment. Gate 2, the sacred mirror. Unexpected shifts in relationships. Capricorn, you are loyal to a fault. Once you commit, you stay, through storms, through silence, through seasons that no longer feed your soul. It's not because you're afraid of change. It's because you understand the weight of responsibility. You carry others' needs like sacred contracts. You hold the foundation when everyone else is crumbling. But what happens when the contract is complete? What happens when the relationship no longer reflects who you are becoming? This is the second gate of June, the sacred mirror. Relationships that no longer align will begin to shift, gently for some, abruptly for others. And new connections, timely, fated, will arrive to show you where your soul is ready to grow. This won't just be about romance. It might show up in friendships, family ties, work partnerships, anywhere you've stayed out of duty rather than resonance, anywhere you've twisted yourself to maintain peace, even when the cost was your own truth. This month, the mirrors come clean. You'll begin to see people more clearly, not for who they were, but for who they've become. More importantly, you'll begin to see yourself reflected in how they treat you. Let me introduce you to Mara, a Capricorn woman in her early 50s. For over a decade, she'd supported her younger sister through addiction, unemployment, and repeated emotional crises. Mara was the rock, always there with money, advice, and a spare room. But during one session in June, Mara quietly admitted, "I don't recognize myself anymore when I'm with her. I feel invisible." That sentence was her sacred mirror. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She was simply awake. And in that wakefulness, she realized that her presence had become a permission slip for her sister to stay small. Their bond was built on survival, not healing. So Mara stepped back, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. And something incredible happened. Her sister, initially furious, finally hit rock bottom and chose sobriety. Their relationship didn't end. It transformed, but only because Mara had the courage to let go of being the rescuer. Capricorn, who are you rescuing? Whose pain have you carried for so long that you've forgotten your own? This month, expect conversations you didn't plan to have. Words that slip out because they've lived in your body too long. A truth that surfaces at the most inconvenient moment. These are not breakdowns. They are breakthroughs. Some of you may reconnect with people from your past, not because you're meant to return, but because you're ready to finally understand the lesson. Others will meet someone new, seemingly out of nowhere, whose presence feels like déjà vu. These souls are part of your spiritual contract. They arrive when the energy is ripe. You may meet a mentor who sees your potential clearly, a client who changes the course of your career, a friend who holds space for your grief without needing to fix it. These are not coincidences. They are answers to prayers you forgot you whispered. But with new alignment comes necessary release. Some relationships may drift. Others may end. And yes, it will hurt, especially for you, Capricorn, who sees commitment as sacred. But here's the truth the stars are offering. Letting go of someone who no longer aligns is not failure. It's evolution. The pain isn't in the separation. It's in the resistance. And when you stop resisting the natural cycle of connection, birth, bloom, decay, renewal, you begin to experience love not as possession, but as presence. This month will teach you what love truly means. Not obligation, not performance, but resonance. Ask yourself, who do I become when I'm around this person? Do I shrink or expand? Do I feel seen or only needed? The answers may surprise you, and they may free you. You'll notice patterns dissolving, old codependent dynamics losing their grip. People who once triggered you now feel distant, uncharged. That's not apathy. That's healing. Your nervous system is learning safety without drama. You may also feel deeply drawn to someone unexpectedly, a magnetic pull, not rooted in fantasy, but in spiritual recognition. This person may not fit your usual type, but something in them awakens something in you. That's the sacred mirror too. Sometimes the universe sends a person not to complete you, but to remind you of who you truly are. Capricorn, it's safe to choose relationships where you don't have to earn love through usefulness. It's safe to be met, not just needed. And most importantly, it's safe to outgrow people. That doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. The second unexpected event of June is this. A relationship will transform or end, not as punishment, but as permission for both of you to evolve. And yes, grief will walk with you, but so will freedom. So will clarity. So will the echo of your own voice returning to you, saying, "Thank you for choosing me this time." Gate 3, the soul contract, spiritual love and higher purpose. Capricorn, let's talk about love. Not the kind that burns fast and fades, but the kind that feels ancient, sacred, like a doorway you've walked through before. You may not talk about it much, but deep within your practical, grounded nature lies a yearning for a love that transcends logic. One that doesn't just touch your heart, but speaks directly to your soul. In June, the third gate opens, and with it a soul contract is activated. This is not about fairy tales. This is about alignment. You may feel a sudden sense that someone, perhaps already in your life, or about to appear, is not here by chance. They carry something for you. A lesson, a reflection, a trigger, a blessing. Often, all of the above. For some Capricorns, this gate brings a reawakening within an existing relationship. A deep conversation unearths truths long buried. You may see your partner's wounds in a new light, or yours. Suddenly, the surface-level arguments reveal themselves to be placeholders for a deeper call. Can we evolve together? For others, someone new enters. Not flashy, not dramatic, but familiar in an unexplainable way. A gentle click, like a puzzle piece slipping into place. You might say, "I feel like I've known them forever." And you'd be right. These connections are part of what mystics call soul agreements, decisions made before incarnation to meet again, in this lifetime, to awaken a deeper truth. Let me introduce you to Elena, a Capricorn in her late 30s. Logical to the bone, she built a thriving consultancy, lived alone, and had long decided that love was a distraction. "I don't need it," she would say. "I'm fine." Then, on a volunteer trip in Thailand, she met Jonah, an artist. Soft-spoken, idealistic, everything she wasn't. They clashed at first. He was too fluid, too emotional. She found him frustrating, and yet, she couldn't stop listening to him. One night, they stayed up talking about childhood. She cried, for the first time in years, while telling him about her father's silence. Jonah didn't try to fix it. He just held her hand. "You didn't deserve that silence," he said softly. "You've been building your whole life to prove you matter." That was the moment Elena realized she wasn't fine. She was guarded, and this stranger had walked in not to save her, but to reflect her unmet need for softness. They didn't marry, but they stayed in each other's lives. Jonah inspired her to paint, to speak more gently to herself. Elena helped him launch a nonprofit using her strategic skills. It was never about possession. It was about evolution. That is what June offers you now, Capricorn. The third gate will confront you with this question. Is your heart truly open to being transformed by love, not just comforted by it? Because real love doesn't just soothe you, it activates you. And this month, that activation may come through a conversation, a dream, a memory that returns like a song from another lifetime. Pay attention to those who make you feel unreasonably seen. That intensity is not danger, it's recognition. Your soul is not afraid of intimacy. Your ego is. You've built a life on confidence, control, and careful decisions. But the soul contract opening now is not logical. It may not make sense on paper. They may live across the world. They may be younger, older, or in a different life stage. And yet you feel drawn. This gate is not asking you to abandon your discernment. It's asking you to listen with your heart. Sometimes the most important people arrive when we're not ready. Sometimes they don't stay, but they shift us forever. Don't ask, "Is this my forever person?" Ask instead, "What part of me do they awaken? What part of me do they heal? What part of me is resisting what I actually crave?" Even if no person arrives this month, Capricorn, your relationship to love will change. You may finally release an old wound. You may forgive someone who never apologized. You may realize that what you called independence was actually self-protection. And in doing so, you unlock the greatest spiritual truth of all. You are already whole. Love does not complete you. It mirrors the divinity you had forgotten. This is what makes Gate 3 so powerful. It doesn't promise happily ever after. It offers you something far more enduring, wholeness through union, within or without. This June, don't chase love. Don't shut it out. Simply open the window and let it enter, in whatever form it arrives. A song, a stranger, a letter you forgot you wrote, a moment where you look in the mirror and see yourself, not as lacking, but as ready. Because you are ready, Capricorn, for a love that is not transactional, for a connection that doesn't demand you prove your worth, for intimacy that is slow, honest, and sacred. The third unexpected event of June is this. Someone or something will arrive to remind you that you are lovable not for what you do, but for who you are. That truth will rewire everything. And from that soil, a different kind of relationship will grow, one where you no longer perform, but belong. Gate 4, the quantum leap. Your purpose is being rewritten in real time. Capricorn, this final gate is not subtle. It doesn't whisper. It shakes. It stirs. It rumbles beneath your foundation and says, everything is about to change. Are you willing to be changed with it? You have longed to find yourself through effort, through mastery, through persistence. You were taught that purpose is earned, built, proven. And in many ways it has served you, anchoring your life with structure and significance. But June is not asking you to build more. It's asking you to become more. Gate 4 is about a quantum leap in your life purpose. Not a promotion, not a better job title, but a deeper alignment, an awakening to what you are truly here to do beyond duty or definition. This might sound abstract, but it's deeply physical. It will show up in your body as restlessness, a subtle ache behind the eyes, A sudden surge of energy when you speak about a topic that lights you up. A mysterious fatigue when you're doing something that no longer serves your growth. That's your soul talking. Let me tell you about Samuel, a Capricorn in his mid-40s. For years, he worked in real estate. He was successful, respected, and financially stable. But every night, he felt a quiet discontent, like something essential was being missed. One morning in June, he dreamed of his childhood dog, Max. In the dream, Max looked him in the eyes and said, "You were happiest when you were helping others find their way home." Samuel woke up crying. That week, he found himself volunteering at a local shelter, then mentoring young men aging out of foster care. He began teaching financial literacy on weekends. Within months, he launched a nonprofit helping young adults find housing and purpose. "I still sell homes," he told me later, "but it's not about the homes anymore. It's about being the guide I never had." That is a quantum leap. It doesn't mean you quit everything. It means you listen to the pivot. You allow the deeper calling to reframe your current path or redirect it entirely. In June, you may receive an invitation, a message, an idea that feels like lightning. It might come through a casual conversation, a podcast, a dream. Don't dismiss it, even if it scares you, especially if it scares you. This leap doesn't follow linear logic. It's not about climbing higher. It's about going deeper. You may feel drawn to something you once dismissed as impractical. You might remember a dream you shelved 10 years ago. You could find yourself researching topics at 2 a.m. that have nothing to do with your career, yet everything to do with your calling. The shift may start small. A hobby, a side project, a conversation, but it will carry the unmistakable hum of destiny. The feeling of this is what I was made for. Capricorn, here's what no one tells you. Purpose is not a destination. It's a frequency. And in June, yours is being tuned higher. You are being asked to step beyond the version of success that once defined you, to stop performing purpose and start embodying it. This may bring up fear. What will people think? What if I'm not good enough? What if I start over and fail? Let me say this clearly. You are not starting over. You are returning to yourself. The universe has been preparing this moment for years. Every job, every heartbreak, every lesson has been leading you here. This is not a detour. It's the path you were always meant to walk, now finally illuminated. Some of you may feel this leap financially, opportunities shifting, clients pausing, new revenue streams emerging. Others may feel it creatively, words flowing again, ideas arriving uninvited. Still others may feel it in their nervous system, a sudden peace replacing chronic anxiety. These are all signs of realignment. And if nothing seems to happen this month, don't worry. The leap often begins invisibly. A knowing, a whisper, a decision that hasn't been spoken out loud yet. Honor it anyway. You might journal it. You might share it with one trusted friend. You might just feel it, and that's enough. Because when purpose knocks, your only job is to open the door. The fourth unexpected event of June is this. You'll be invited to redefine your life through meaning, not metrics. And once that invitation arrives, you won't be able to unhear it. You will see things differently. You will no longer settle for good enough if it doesn't resonate with your soul. You will crave alignment the way you used to crave achievement. That's not weakness. That's evolution. This is not the month to ask, "What should I do?" Instead, ask, "What have I always known, deep down, that I was meant to become? What truth keeps knocking, even when I pretend not to hear it? What if the safest thing I can do is leap?" Capricorn, your purpose is not a fixed point on the map. It's a living, breathing compass. And in June, it is recalibrating so you can finally walk the path that fits your entire soul, not just your resume. Trust the redirection. Trust the discomfort. Trust the idea that won't leave you alone. Because the leap is not ahead of you anymore. It's here. And it's time. Conclusion, a month that changes you forever. Capricorn, as you stand at the end of this soul-turning month, take a moment to breathe, not just with your lungs, but with your spirit. Because what June has offered you is not just change, it is transformation. You've walked through 4 powerful gates, each revealing a deeper truth, each calling forth a more authentic version of you. You are invited to remember your true essence, to see yourself not as what you do, but as who you truly are when all the noise fades. You are guided through a sacred release, letting go of timelines, people, and stories that no longer match the frequency of your becoming. You open to a soul connection, one that did not arrive to fill a void, but to mirror your divine wholeness and awaken the part of you still longing to be seen. And finally, you are summoned into a quantum leap of purpose, rewriting the very blueprint of why you're here, redefining success not by status, but by soul resonance. If you felt tired this month, or overwhelmed, or even unsure of what's next, know that's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you are shifting deeply. And you cannot rush integration. You are not who you were on June 1st. Let yourself catch up to your own evolution. Let the seeds planted in your heart this month take root. You don't need all the answers now. You just need to keep listening to the quiet voice within that says, "This is who I really am." Capricorn, your journey has always been about becoming the mountain, strong, enduring, majestic. But now the mountain is moving, and so are you, into a life not just built, but aligned. Into relationships not just chosen, but fated. Into work not just done, but embodied. If this video has resonated with your heart and reflected your journey, I invite you to like, share, or subscribe, not for vanity, but to stay connected to this healing space where wisdom meets spirit and the stars remind you of who you truly are. And most of all, dear Capricorn, trust the path you are now on, even when it bends, even when it disappears, because the soul never gets lost. It only takes longer to remember. You are remembering now, and that is the greatest miracle of all.